France 24's Foreign Affairs editor Armen Georgian is covering this story for us today, and he's on the line now. Armen, are you surprised by the latest ruling in this case?
Well, this is certainly a blow for Lafarge because, of course, the Court of Appeals, as we just heard in that report, struck down the crimes against humanity charge in 2019, and that is really the most serious of all these charges. It's the one that Lafarge's lawyers had been fighting the most strenuously, and they kept saying crimes against humanity would mean that Lafarge had a hand in a concerted plan to destroy a civilian population, and they were adamant that that was absolutely not the case. So this is a very big blow for the company because, as we heard from in Monty Francis's piece just there, the Court of Appeals had already upheld the other charges: financing of terrorism, violating an embargo, endangering the lives of others. Now, this most serious of the charges, crimes against humanity, is now back on the table. That puts a lot of heat on Lafarge for whenever this question is examined by another court.
And Armen, Lafarge is not the first multinational to be accused of complicity in crimes against humanity related to operations in a country where people are suffering human rights abuses. I'm thinking of Shell in Nigeria, for example, but it is rare that these kinds of cases end up being brought to trial. Do you think this could set a precedent?
Well, there have been plenty of similar cases in the past, and maybe not directly comparable, but certainly Colombia, Liberia, Nigeria, other conflict zones where multinationals have been accused of in some way abetting abuses against the civilian population. But it's interesting that you mentioned the case of Shell, Nadia, because that was, I think, a good example of how it's very difficult to know which jurisdiction to use for those who are trying to bring a case against a multinational. In the end, with that case, with Shell, a U.S. court decided that it did not have jurisdiction to rule, and we've seen with other cases with the Royal Timber Company, for example, in Liberia, there was a complex jurisdiction involving Dutch courts, but also law being used in other countries. So it's a very complex legal framework, and it's not really clear what impact the Lafarge case is going to have, because of course we don't have that final ruling yet on the crimes against humanity charges. So we'll have to see what happens when that ruling does come about. But certainly activists and NGOs have been very much hoping that this Lafarge case will bring a lot more pressure on multinationals to abide by their social responsibility clauses, and that the publicity engendered by this case will have an impact, because they claim that governments very often are not willing to take on multinationals because of the prestige of the brands involved and the fact that these multinationals do create jobs. And that was certainly the case with Lafarge in northern Syria, providing opportunities for locals.
All right, Armen Georgian, thanks very much indeed for your analysis there.